It's a mess in this attic, lot going on, but there ain't no need to panic. Come on up and join, we getting wild, getting manic. Spitting truth for all you fanatics. Every week got something new to say. Ain't no filter, this shit coming straight from the brain. It's coming straight from the brain. Yeah, it's coming straight from the brain.
What's up, everybody? Today is December 9th, 2022. This is A Talk in the Attic, which of course means I'm your host, Kirk Ross. Today's episode is an excellent one. It's a special one. My guest today is Marcel Price, better known as Fable the Poet, who from 2017 through 2020 served as Grand Rapids Poet Laureate, making him the first person of color to do so. And Marcel has since been involved with an organization called the Diatribe. Check the show notes for their website, learn a little bit more about their mission, which essentially has been arts education and teaching the value of communication to underserved communities, teaching kids how to express themselves in a healthier way. It's an excellent mission. Their scope has since grown a little bit to the point now where they're in the planning stages and the funding stages of a project called the Emory Arts Culture Hub, which is intended to serve the Burton area, which is the southeast part of Grand Rapids, which has traditionally been underserved. It's relatively impoverished. It's predominantly people of color living there. And they put a great plan together. They had bipartisan support through all of the early rounds of politics that go into getting this sort of funding. And unfortunately, last week they were dealt a very unfavorable decision by the Kent County Board of Commission, and it's a shitty ending to that part of the story, but you're going to hear from Marcel directly. They're not giving up. That was just one way to find some funding. How can you help? You can donate your money. You can donate your time. You can follow them on social media, share their stories, share their images, and it's in vogue right now for people to say that they're into politics, but are people really into politics, or are they into arguing about who the president should be? Because Marcel gets into the fact that it's the local politician, it's the local elections that really have the most immediate impact on you, on your neighbors, on our communities. I'm so grateful that Marcel stopped into the attic to tell his story. You're going to find this one illuminating. You're going to find it educational, and hopefully, like me, you find it inspiring. I know that after talking to Marcel for half an hour, I did some soul searching and had to ask some tough questions. Am I doing enough? Are you doing enough? Well, I know Marcel is doing enough. So support this guy, support the Diatribe. Enjoy this episode. Let's start the show.
A poem inspired by Kehinde Wiley's painting, designed for stained glass window with wild man. When staring at this painting, I see that I was never encouraged to dream. That even when draped with an 04 Welcome to Rock Nation chain, without being a diplomat, we are still destined to shine. I see him relaxed, reclined, a co-pilot with his sneakers peeking out the passenger window, same as any one of us at the time. Working to cash out, glow out, and now blow out stock speakers, just trying to shine. Bass maxed out, treble turned down before we ever knew we were missing the sound. I roll with a gang of gangs who hang and bang animals, orangutans chanting Dipset, Dipset, Dipset. I could have swore I knew him before I knew I didn't. Loose New Era 5950, Easter Air Force Ones with the pastel patent, polo with a tall tee, and a miracle to match it for too long. I never saw this as magic. Is that not America's grand finale? Its greatest masterpiece? We play necromancer with the toe tag, erect tombs out of hashtags, use t-shirts as memorials, but the irony between cotton and a free Gucci, Asada, or rest in peace t-shirt is a metaphor I haven't yet mastered. there we are, in museums on display, as they bask in the work it takes to bring us back to life. When staring at that painting, I see that I was never encouraged to dream, that even if that boy is gone, he lives, at least there. Not only there, flowers all around him while still above ground. To be seen cuffed without shackles, now that is a true religion. Still vibrant, invisible. This picture is Javon going hard body to the lane on Nike court when the surface was as teal as the seas we only saw in books. Aaron's pull up every time, net exploding as we turn firework on the sideline. Kyle's pull up every time as our student section became a roar before we felt like anything more than prey. Kyron's pull up every time before fistfights landed more than shots on double rims. This poem is me being reminded that we are more than just sports every time. This work of art is Jamal's laugh after cooking. My brother Keenan's voice on some Isley Brothers meets D'Angelo type stuff. My brother Darian's crossover in the Day and One mixtapes with a touch of hot sauce added on for finesse. Foster's new suit for each event dripping 90s like candy paint. Martel's locks blowing in the wind, flying down Fulton Street on two wheels, no need for a destination. Julius standing on the speaker of the pyramid scheme, microphone in hand, not a care but a cadence, spraying water like a dragon and spitting bars like the gospel. Chianti, creatively uncontrollable, hair untamed, mane aflame and dreaming. This picture is my poems. This picture is my poems. It's all we ever had and always wanted. The opportunity to be ourselves without judgment. Celebrated for once, for being, just being.
I'm here today with Marcel Price, better known as Fable the Poet.
Yo,
What's up, man? Thanks for being on the show.
it is an absolute pleasure to be on the show and in this beautiful space.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's put a lot of work into this, but you know, you've been putting a lot of work into the community. Your background we'll get into a little bit later, but let's talk about what's kind of hot right now, and that is this project that you're trying to do, this community art center.
Yeah, the Emory.
The Emory. Yeah, let's hear about it.
Let's hear about the project, or let's hear about what happened.
Let's hear about the project first. Why is it something that we should be building and what we should be funding?
Yeah, so the Emory is in theory an arts and culture center, but it's significantly more than that. The entire upstairs is truly affordable housing. So the term affordable housing is really used by developers to get government money
Right.
to make housing that isn't actually affordable so that they can make money hand over fist.
Right.
And these are truly affordable housing with an equity component. And what I mean by that is the studios are going to start off at $600 a month. The 2 bedrooms are going to be around $800 a month.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is the first year that people stay there, they're going to take a credit building class. The second year that people stay there, they're going to take a financial literacy class. The third year they'll stay there, they'll take a home ownership class, and then we're going to give them back $3,648 or $5,400 so that they can be more competitive in the housing market.
Beautiful.
So we're flipping the idea of rent on its head.
Yeah.
And then on the main floor of this building, half of the space is going to be a collaborative working space for artists, change makers, community advocates. And then during after school hours, it's going to be a hangout space for 20 to 30 young people.
That's awesome.
In this hangout space, we're going to focus on the entirety of the students' lives. So which of these young people have parents that are looking for therapy? Which of these young people are looking for therapy? Which of them just need a tutor? Which of them just need a place to hang out?
Yeah.
Which of them just need a meal? Which of them need a college recommendation letter? Which are just looking for a job? And actually measure how you can impact a young person's life if you life if you impact the entirety of it.
Right.
The other half of the building is going to be hyper affordable retail incubator spaces for creative entrepreneurs. There's going to be 4 of them. One's going to be a collaboration between a coffee shop and a bookstore owned by 2 Black women. One is going to be a printing press and design studio owned by a dynamic Black woman. One is going to be a recording studio owned by 2 gentlemen who grew up in the neighborhood. And the other is going to be a visual arts studio owned by a gentleman who grew up in the neighborhood. Yeah. And in the basement is going to be an all ages venue. That's going to be like a Harlem Renaissance themed venue space, speakeasy style space where we'll bring in some of the most prolific artists, writers, and change makers of our time.
Dude, that's awesome. That's a huge mission.
Yeah, it's a wild project.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the location of this is a key part of the mission as well, right? This is in a place that doesn't have, many of the amenities that a lot of other places are afforded.
Yeah, like if you look at Burton Heights, I mean, there's literal pee and poop on the sidewalk. Like kids walk by urine and feces when they're going to and from school. The neighborhood is predominantly Black and brown. A significant amount of the neighbors are underdocumented. There is not investment, especially culturally responsible investment, that makes the neighborhood a place where people can live, work, and play. But it's set up, like downtown. It's a very busy thoroughfare that should be walkable, that should have attractions for the people who live around it, because there's more houses around this thoroughfare than almost any part of the city.
Yeah, it's pretty dense in there.
Yeah, for sure. And we definitely want to make this neighborhood more walkable, but also due to poverty, due to the complex environment, there's a significant amount of crime. But one thing that we've seen with replicated in the suburbs and all across America is once you really start to invest in an area, you start to have crime reduced. And I believe that if we activate these parking lots, if we do events in the community, if we do events in this space, if we have hundreds of people of foot traffic, that you can naturally and organically reduce those complexities and those issues such as crime. Right. And that's one thing that we intend on proving, as well as slowing down the street is going to make it safer for pedestrian traffic and the students who walk through there. And hopefully all of those things will be trickle-down effects from this investment.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting too, because it's not an example of gentrification, which often happens in those sorts of neighborhoods, right? So this is an example of somebody from there, somebody that looks like the people from there, putting their time and energy and their money back into something that's going to organically improve the neighborhood.
Right. And I live here, right? That's my neighborhood. Like, that's my business district.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a part of that business association. I'm a part of that corridor improvement district. I've been a part of that neighborhood association. Like, that's where our kids go who we teach. Like, that's our roots.
That's your spot. Yeah, dude. So, well, it's certainly a worthwhile and important and impactful. I mean, I'm sure you've looked at what the real impact of this can be.
Yeah, and I don't even know how we'll measure it, but we're going to have to look at how we're going to measure it over time, besides just the quality of the students' lives and how it impacts the lives of the tenants and the business owners. But yeah, how we impact the community, it's going to be really wild to see it over time. But hopefully it can be an example of development without displacement.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Well, keep rolling. So I know this week, or I guess last week now, you had there was kind of a big motion in place for some COVID money, federal money that was put out as a stimulus. It wasn't a favorable outcome. Explain a little bit of what was up for grabs and what happened, and then what is your perspective on how all that thing? I can imagine. I know what my perspective is, but I want to hear from you.
Yeah, I can do them all kind of in once. Yeah. So for those that don't know, the federal government gave a lot of the bigger counties in each state and cities in each state a significant amount of money through an act called ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act. And the whole idea behind these funds is you want to invest them in the areas, into the places that were most disproportionately impacted by COVID.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
Right.
And if you look at demographics, if you look at data, there's certain people who are impacted by COVID at a higher rate due to, again, the complexities of the environments in which they're in. Right.
Yes,
so that should be going to, again, the people who are most impacted, the neighborhoods, the businesses. But I digress. Right. This ARPA process was a pretty extensive process through Kent County. There were 3 steps to this process. The first step, 319 organizations submitted to this process.
Wow.
They hired an unbiased consultant to go through every single one of these proposals, and they graded them on 3 different categories as well as the community impact. We were one of 10 organizations to receive an all green rating.
Hell yeah.
They gave ratings green, yellow, red. So we got 3 green ratings. We were literally one of 10 to receive all 3 green ratings.
Hell yeah.
So the second step of this process, it went to the county commissioners. And the county commissioners sat around a room with clickers and they gave ratings 1 to 5. 1 being, I'm not interested in funding this. 5 being, this is a priority that we should fund this. There were 18 commissioners that were in that session. 1 didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the 18 commissioners, when they're unbiased looking at these proposals, 11 commissioners voted in favor of the project. So we passed step A. We're one of 10.
Yeah,
to get
you're in a really high spot after step 1.
We go through step 2. We're in like the top 15%. After 11 out of 18 selected us. So we got bipartisan support, which is wild, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets to step 3, which is the county administrator's office goes through everything the commissioner says. It goes through everything the consultant says, everything the public has been saying. And they suggest 29 projects for funding. We were one of the 29 projects selected by the Kent County administrator.
Okay.
So we passed step 1 with an A. We passed step 2 with an A. We passed step 3 with an A. And they suggested us being funded at $2 million.
Beautiful. How much were you seeking?
$2 million.
That's hell yeah.
So a week after this happens, I get a call from one of the county commissioners. I'm going to see the movie Black Panther, ironically enough. And he's like, hey, Marcel, do you got a second? I'm like, I'm walking into the theater. What's going on? And he's like, there's some people that are really not fans of your organization. I'm like, what do you mean, man? And he's like, well, they think that you guys are Black Lives Matter. They think that you guys are defund the police. They think that you guys are the people who bring drag queens into classrooms. And I was like, that's wild because we don't do any of those things. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, but they believe that that's who you guys are.
Racist.
And I was, and I don't, and again, I'm not going to throw out words like racist because I'm going to let this experience speak for itself and then people can judge and see what it is for what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. There's people who don't like us. That's absolutely terrifying. I talk to people who I know in administration. I talk to people who I know in the city. Everybody's like, man, we feel like this is going to happen. Like, this is going to be historic. This is crazy.
Yeah, they're excited about it.
A project like this in the country. Don't worry about it. Don't lose sleep. I'm like, all right, bet.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving comes. I get a call from a different county commissioner. He's like, hey, man, I got some really troubling news. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, there's people on one side of the aisle who are refusing to vote on this. And if I'm being honest, one person started to raise some concerns about you guys. And he's convinced all of the other people on that side of the aisle that if they vote for you, then they are going to get primaried next election. So is there any way that you think that you could convince maybe a foundation to receive this money? And then we could give the foundations for an arts and culture project. And then you guys could then receive the money. And then, when those smear campaigns come out,
there's some space between it.
There's some space between it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I got to be honest, man. Like, you even asking that feels like gross. Like I guarantee you're not asking anyone else that. And he's like, I know, man. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to look for solutions. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm sure I can talk a foundation into doing that because we have those relationships now. But also, that's not a quick snap of a finger thing.
Not in time to get this thing voted on.
Yeah. A foundation just doesn't change policy in 24 hours.
Yeah, they've already committed money elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And also you got to put it up to the board of trustees and then get it voted on and then change the policy and then receive the funding. And it's like, you're going to get that on a proposal in a week. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
So he's like, just don't worry about it. Don't stress, I'll call you after the holiday. And don't stress is already impossible for me because in August, my wife died.
Oh my goodness. So sorry to hear that.
And this is my first holiday without her. So the holiday is already, I'm at home alone. I'm feeling everything. Now I'm starting to fret about, what is happening right now. And I get a call the day before the county commission meeting. And this county commissioner reaches out to me and he's like, hey man, so I'm not receiving a lot of progress from these people. There's 8 of us. There's 11 of them. They are 100% committed to not funding this project. That's the way it feels. So one thing that I could make possible is I could push for this project to go to an up and down vote. There's 3 people who aren't coming back next term. So if you really convince some of these people about your project and your intentionality, if you do a straight up and down vote, you could get the majority. And I'm like, if that's my only shot, I'll do it. You know?
Of course. Yeah.
So I get out blowing up people's text messages. We put out an email blast. We jump on social media like, hey, please write in letters to your county commissioners. If we've impacted your life in some way, like just share in the letter how we've impacted your life. We don't want to say, hey, fuck you, county commissioners. Like just say, hey, this is what I feel about them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Right.
And then I was telling people, hey, there's going to be public comment, show up. Whoop-de-whoop. I go in the next day and I'm sick to my stomach, nervous because I'm like, all right, these people already think of me some way.
Yeah.
They already have an impression of who I am, what I believe, how I move, how I navigate.
Right.
So like this is my moment. This is my moment to convince these people that I'm not something that they think that I am.
Right.
And I sit down in my chair and a county commissioner comes up to me and he's like, hey man, I have some really bad news. I was like, what's going on? He's like, there's not going to be a vote today. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, that they all refuse. They said if we continue to bring your name up, that they'll take everything that we wanted off the docket. They have the majority. They'll push through the things that they want and vote on it. So we had to settle and just compromise with another Black organization getting funding.
Damn.
And I was like, okay. He's like, I'm sorry, man. And he gets up and walks away. So everybody's there for public comment. People go and they're speaking. If you link the video of the county commission meeting in the comment section to this or in the description to this, if you watch the video, it's 3 hours long. You're probably gonna have to zoom through it, but there's commissioners literally chastising other commissioners, talking about this was made into politics, and then other county commissioners saying we ranked this project 12 and they weren't funded. Like there's a reason that they weren't funded. And literally people went around in a room talking about how horrendous and ridiculous it was that this happened.
Appreciate the work of the staff and everyone, all the commissioners, and your time. I just want to say that this still is not enough for people of color. I don't like pitting Black organizations against each other. It's not fair. It's not right. There are a lot of good organizations out there. So I don't like that. I don't like the fact that one of the proposals that was rated high, the Diatribe, is not even on here. They were rated high. I think everybody that came out today, they had something to say, because as a Black commissioner, I can tell you that it's tough up here. And I'm just being transparent. It's tough. And we have your back and we're trying, but it doesn't always work. But we're going to continue, Commissioner McLeod, Commissioner Womack, and other commissioners. There are other commissioners up here too that are working on your behalf. So I just want you to know that we do care and we do see you and we hear you.
And you all know I rarely have anything to say, but I am just going to be honest. I'm pissed this morning. I'm very upset with what this is. And I think that we all need to be held to account, because this was not supposed to be political. This was supposed to be something where we listened to the community and we did what we needed to do to make sure that we made the communities whole that really, again, bore the brunt of this pandemic. So all I will say is that at the end of the day, when we go home and we have to look ourselves in the mirror, and is this okay? Are you okay with this? The Diatribe was rated 12 out of all of the community projects. They are not on this list for a very political reason, and I'm not going to bring it out. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating to be one of the few commissioners of color up here to have to face the community that said, that really thought that they were going to have an opportunity. And this is what they got. I don't think it's fair. And I think that, proposals that were rated highly by all of us on this dais should be considered, and they should not have been taken off. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I might have more to say, but I need to calm myself down.
2 weeks ago, we had a $2 million proposal for the Diatribe. Today, it's 0. And it's about power, privilege, and punishment. And I don't know if you have been at a Diatribe experience. I don't know if you've been at somewhere where, in addition today, you all were at a Diatribe experience today, because the spoken word, that at least was powerful for me. They bring that to every corner of Kent County. And that spoken word is communication when it's not too late. It truly is saving lives. And the opportunity to invest in the Diatribe is far enough upstream. So again, the question I ask myself in honor of Vern Ehlers is there enough good in this resolution to outweigh the stench that will stain me well beyond December 31st if I vote yes? So that's where I sit. I do pledge at this moment, I pledged before the meeting, I'm going to do everything I can to continue to support the Diatribe. As a matter of full disclosure, Disability Advocates gave a letter of support, I think it was back in the spring. With honor, signed that letter of support. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
I lost my business after 30 years because of the pandemic. I never got a dime from anybody as a result. And if there's some really good projects that's not going to get funding, that's too bad. It really is. There's probably some really crappy projects that are going to get funding. It's just that we don't really know. We got to do our best due diligence on this stuff.
And I am especially disappointed that the Diatribe is not in here. You all deserved to be funded. I have personally seen the transformational work you do. And this, even though this proposal has so many good things in it and is something that I will support, we failed you. And I failed you. And for that, I apologize.
The Diatribe I found a very interesting project and was kind of well designed in a number of ways. I actually, personally in the ranking, I wanted to see that one get a little more due diligence. And so I ranked that high. I gave it a 5. I think with the additional due diligence, just about, the organizational size and the project size and all of that, I think it's the right choice that it didn't end up making the cut. But I just want to express to Marcel particularly my appreciation. He took time to chat with myself and my daughter about the project, and I love his energy, and I'm happy to extend just a personal invitation to Marcel to sit down later after this process and dive into the details more of my perspective on the whole process and all the details. So I just wanted to make that an opportunity if it's helpful.
We had a real opportunity here to take this money that came to us, to do what it was meant for, to make real transformational change in our community, to deal with the economic effects of the pandemic, to deal with long-standing disparities. And I know people tried, but we just didn't quite get there. And that's tough.
Commissioner, make sure you address me. Thank you.
I am addressing you. I'm just not looking at you. Unfortunately, the project got bogged down in some pet projects. Let's really be honest here. A program for a theater renovation that shows no sustainability to actually work. Subsidizing on anti-union construction companies. A library in Rockford. Called my city manager. We passed our library in East Grand Rapids. It's a beautiful library. A lot of people come there. You're all welcome. You are too, Mr. Chair. But we paid for it. That's how KDL works. But votes needed to be had. And so it's on there. Pickleball courts are on here. Pickleball courts. This is transformational change, according to some. And $8.5 million for roads. Not in cities. We pay for our roads. I got $2 million on my tax bill. City pays income taxes, but we're going to add it on, even though we got infrastructure money coming behind this. Even though the governor is fixing the roads. And worst of all, the majority party deleted a plan for Diatribe, not based on merit. It's a program that good. But base it on politics and base it on fear that people would be primaried. Shameful. Embarrassing.
But I will say that there's hope for the future, and us Dems should embrace the Diatribe, because the county is not the only funding that's out here. If you just look at the money that's been raised for all the campaign, all this money that went from both parties for elections, we can raise the money to get this building done. So I want Diatribe to just say, hey, we came to Kent County. That's the end. We're commissioners from Grand Rapids. We're the ones that get the majority of votes in Grand Rapids. We should continue to do what we can do to help Diatribe get that building.
The Diatribe is not on this list, and that decision has obviously been made. But I really invite all of my colleagues here to get to know what they've done, because I promise you they've done work in your district. I promise you that they've done really good work in your district among people who really need it. And, you know, you're out of danger here, but you can still learn what they're doing. And you can see a lot of really fantastic work that's going on. And I invite you and I encourage you to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And then there were people on another side of the aisle that was like, you know, I originally liked the project, but I'm just worried about their capacity. You know, I'm worried about their capacity as an organization.
Like your ability to manage it?
Yeah, which is absolutely ridiculous, because now we receive NEA funds. We receive money from the federal government. We receive $250,000 in CARES Act dollars and created free downloadable content while students were doing distance learning that had hundreds of downloads, not only across Kent County, but across the United States. You know, like we've shown that we can manage federal dollars and that we can put them to use in hyper intentional ways. Like 80% of that dollars didn't only go to Black, brown, and queer businesses, but women-owned businesses. Yeah. Like we're hyper intentional with the way every single one of our dollars is spent.
Right.
And we're going to be just as intentional with this building.
Yeah.
But they see that intentionality and think that our politics are one way or another, and then use that as a way to leverage people to not vote for us. And then that is how those ARPA dollars ended up not being gifted to us. And we were,
you were in position to get them.
Yeah, we passed every step of the test. Yeah, and then they failed us.
I mean, is there anything even close to this that got funded? What kind of stuff is getting funded?
No. So there's some things that are good that are getting funded. Yeah. But again, it's not innovative. But then there's also some things that are like just. It's almost like trash and make believe that it got funded. Right. Like there was one person who got $500,000, one organization who got $500,000, who was given like all yellow or red ratings, and he went to school with one of the county commissioners.
Of course.
And he got $500,000.
Dude.
And his organization, his nonprofit hasn't existed for a year or two. So when you talk about feasibility, like, what are you
How do they have the ability?
About?
What's their capacity?
Right. What's their capacity?
Yeah.
We have development team. We have, you know, we have our accountants. We have our project managers. We have our education director. We have wild amount of capacity.
Exactly, dude.
Like, so again, that just shows that that's not true.
Yeah.
And then they keep saying things like, well, you know, there were 320 proposals. There were a lot of people who didn't get funded, right? And
not that
passed every single part
with
of the
flying
process.
colors. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not one that was ranked in the top 12
right.
that didn't get funded.
Yeah, dude. It's a bummer.
They funded $2 million to the Rockford Library, which, you know, I love the people in Rockford, you know, but like libraries are normally made by millages.
Yeah. Right.
And Rockford is pretty well off.
They have there's money to be had there.
There's money to be had there. I'm sure there's one person that could probably donate the money to make that possible.
Right.
And this is for the communities that were most disproportionately impacted by COVID.
Which is where the money came from.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was $4 million that's going to a project that's backed by some of the city's wealthiest.
Yeah.
They own 150 acres in our neighborhood, and they own a predominant amount of the buildings downtown. And $4 million went to them. A few million also went to their project in Ada.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
There's
what's going on.
Yeah. And there was like $4 million, you know, that went to the Urban League, you know, to make a CDFI. There's $2 million that went to the Hispanic Center to make a CDFI, you know, and those will probably turn out to be really cool ideas. I'm happy that those organizations got those ideas.
Yeah.
But this is again something that, unlike any of the other projects or proposals that were funded, this is a physical entity that's going to exist in our neighborhood and change individuals' lives.
Yeah, dude.
It's going to change the landscape of our neighborhood. It's going to change the landscape of our business district. It's going to change the way that philanthropy interacts with young people and the way people look at housing and rent.
Yeah.
And
it's going to give the kids in the neighborhood that need an example of what they can do with them, you know, like an inspirational story. They've got that now.
And make our neighborhood a place where you can live, work, and play. Every neighborhood should be a place where you can live, work, and play. But not every neighborhood in our city is built to be a place where you can live, work, and play.
Right. Dude, I'm bummed that you didn't get the funding. But now what? How are we going to do this thing now? How can the listeners and viewers help?
Yeah. So, I mean, if the listeners and viewers, if you want to go to our website and sign up for our newsletter so that you're made aware of when the next letter writing campaign or next call to action is, that's a huge step. If you feel like donating, you can go to the support page on our website and you can donate if you'd like to donate. But by the time this comes out, we're going to have a lot of videos and propaganda. Learn about everything that went on, watch the videos, share the videos, just talk about it, right? A lot of people don't realize the impact that we have on our local elections. Things like city commissioners, things like county commissioners are more important to a lot of us than
who the president is. Yeah.
That impacts directly the economy and our lives here.
And your vote matters more because you're one of only a few thousand people or a couple hundred people voting, depending on where you're from.
And it makes a huge difference. And this is an exact example, right, of where things shouldn't be partisan, you know, and again, I could probably go off on a whole different tangent about how this two-party system is make-believe, right? Yeah. It's literally make-believe. Yeah. It's two people trying to fire up people in the middle to go after each other and be at each other's throats so that they can make money. Right. On one side of the fence, people will take Black Death and Black Outrage and use it as a chip for an election.
Right.
On the other side, people will use things like free speech as a bargaining chip for an election, right? And embolden people to yell at each other, and then be just as nasty and evil at each other as the other, right? And
both sides are shit.
And it's bullshit because at the end of the day, it literally should just be about what are we doing for people? You know, what are we doing for humanity? What are we doing for our neighbors? What are we doing to change the lives of people? Are we doing the best that we can to adequately impact the lives of as many people as we can?
Right.
By being a decent human being, by healing, by creating organizations, by creating businesses that impact the world around you, by helping your neighbor, raking the woman across the street's leaves, you know, just do what you can.
Yeah, right.
And this is a perfect example of where politics gets put over people.
Yeah, dude, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're fighting the good fight, man. I mean, can we talk a little bit about what the Diatribe is? I mean, this project aside, you've got a lengthy history of, you know, education and all of that. Explain a little bit about what the Diatribe is and how you got into that.
Yeah, so the Diatribe just adopted a brand new mission that's going to be made public in 2023. But up until this point, our mission was to use performing arts to empower young people to share their stories, raise awareness of social issues, and be active members in their community. Of course, with this building, with all of the work that we've been doing, we had to change our mission to grow with our scope of work. So again, if you follow the organization, their Facebook, Instagram, our website, you'll figure out all about this new mission when our new website launches in 2023 as well.
Yeah.
But the way that the work always looked historically is we'd go into schools and we would bring 4 poets, spoken word artists.
Yeah.
They would talk about their story. They would talk about their upbringing. They'd talk about the mistakes that they've made. They'd talk about the harm that they've caused. They'd talk about the complexities of their life, of their being. And then they'd perform a poem about it.
Hell yeah.
And then we'd bring in some of the most talented singer-songwriters, hip-hop artists, musicians, and we'd turn their auditorium into a concert.
Hell yeah.
And people would let loose and have fun. Everything from DJs scratching records to full bands rocking out in front of the kids. And then again, paying local artists for all of it. Paying those DJs, paying those local artists, paying those poets, right? Breaking bread with creatives.
Yeah.
Paying hundreds of thousands of dollars out to creatives. Like that's how we started.
Yeah. That's how that helps get interest from the kids too. Like
Right.
it makes it memorable for them,
Yes.
you know, if
Yes.
it wasn't already. Yeah.
And then after that experience, we work with them for 6, 9, or 12 weeks, helping them craft their own story. So some of these young people are writing about their mental health. Some of these young people are writing about how they struggled with their parents' divorce. Some of these young people are writing about how their dress code is biased to the women in their school, right?
Yeah, whatever's
So, like,
whatever's got them going.
young women being like, "Hey, fuck this dress code," you know, and it's like, "Hey, get it!" Like, absolutely. Sometimes it's young people talking about their neighborhood or community. You know, it's there's everything from domestic violence to alcoholism to abuse and molestation. Like it's a wide array of things.
Yeah, but it's helping these kids confront these things that most of us don't do.
And many times it's showing teachers why that kid is the quiet kid in class.
Yeah.
You know, why that kid is the one that gets suspended all the time.
Yeah, it gives them some perspective.
And they're like, dang.
Yeah.
You know, it's letting you inside the lives of the people that are there. And also some of these kids, they stay writing. Like there's one social worker who I ran into. Right now we're doing a 2,000 journal campaign. We're trying to get journals in the hand of 2,000 kids. And the social worker ran into me and she was like, I had a young woman who went to Northview, which is way different than my neighborhood, you know?
Yeah.
For those that are listening to this, it's a more suburban area.
Yep.
Predominantly white.
Yeah.
Working class. And the student went to Northview, and she had a really rough upbringing. But she was working with this social worker for the last couple of years, and the only way that she would share what she was going through with her social worker was through this journal. And her social worker was like, "Where'd you get this journal? And like, why are you so attached to it?" And it turns out that she got it from us.
Oh, hell yeah.
And like, that was like a story that like somebody told me at a house party or something.
It had to
and
be
I was like-
heartwarming.
yeah. I was like, that's crazy,
That's
right?
the mission, yeah.
Yeah. Cause it's like, you think about it, it's just like, oh, I see the student perform this one day in class. And you don't think of the ways that it trickles down and impacts other things, you know?
Hell yeah.
But that's like what it does, you know?
That's pretty cool. That's like that's education has been the main focus kind of leading up to now, where now the scope's growing.
And all of our work hits ELA standards. So like our work can be taught in place of a creative writing class. It can be taught in place of a traditional English class.
Yeah.
And then over time, we created a whole new second class. And in the second class was called Writing to Right Wrongs. And that can be taught in place of a history unit. And what it does is it teaches young people about fair housing. It teaches them how their schools are funded by their neighborhood. So if you play basketball at Ottawa Hills, which is one demographic of students surrounded by houses that look a certain way, and you go to East Grand Rapids and you are surrounded by one demographic and the homes look a certain way, it's like, oh, why are our fields so different? You know, why is our school so different?
they learn about tax base.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, wait, it was engineered to be like this. Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But also their neighborhoods, again, their homes, like how their grandparents were able to get houses to even pass it down to them, or if they weren't, right? It's all been engineered. So we teach that to them in class.
Hell yeah.
And then they use creative writing to write about their neighborhoods. They use creative writing to talk about their neighborhoods, how they grew up, where they grew up, talk about their family history, what the American dream means to them. You know, again, really nonpartisan stuff, you know,
it's
because
just
again,
like,
we work with students from all different backgrounds and they all love it.
yeah,
Right. They
of course.
love it.
That's the beauty of art and poetry and singing or whatever. It's like such a unifying thing.
Yeah.
When you get the bullshit out of it.
Yeah. And again, like there's students who are there and they're talking about faith, you know, and there's students that are there and they're talking about going hunting with their grandpa. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's students that are there and they're talking about skateboarding downtown.
Yeah.
Right. And there's students are there and they're talking about, man, I almost took my life the other day, you know?
Right.
And again, like that's what it is, you know?
But yeah, I mean, I was never in an environment at that age, you know, where people were that open. So that would have helped me gain perspective from dissimilar people or people like me that are on the surface like me, but maybe they're dealing with something very different.
100%.
And so you've got the background to see the impact that this sort of thing has.
Yeah. And then it grew from that one program to the other. And then during the pandemic, you know, everyone was learning via distance learning.
Yeah.
So we thought to ourselves, how can we take what they're learning and bring it into their neighborhood? How can we take what they're learning and make it larger than life? And after Patrick Lyoya, or after Breonna Taylor and George Floyd were murdered, we came up with this idea for this project called the 49507 Project.
That's the zip code that down there? Is that
Yep,
what it is?
yep. And that's the zip code of the South Side. And it's black and brown art on black and brown businesses, but it's a project unlike any project in the world because there's this digital component. And the digital component was actually created and came up with by my late wife, Nika Price. She works with this software development company called Carnivale. And they made these placards that when you scan them, it brings you into a 3D version of where you're standing. And the color of the ground is the color that they graded it in the 1930s when they did the redlining maps.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're at, let's say, Eastern in Franklin, the ground is red. But if you're at Eastern in Alger, the ground is blue. And it's like, why was it given this grade? And then you look around you at the neighborhoods and you're like, why does it look like this? And then you realize that, again, it was engineered to be that way. And again, that's what we're teaching them, you know? So now they can see it. And now the art pulls people into being taught about it.
Yeah. So
that we can teach people by using public art as a catalyst to teach. And that's what we do, is use art as a catalyst to teach. But in that way, you're using visual art instead of performance art. Right. And then we unveiled all the murals with our students performing. And then like asked our students, like, who do you need at these if we're going to, you know, create a ruckus? And they're like, the mayor, the city commissioners. And lo and behold, they come, you know?
Hell yeah.
And that is the project that graduated from what we were doing. And then before we knew it, our neighbors were like, plant roots here, you know? And to make all this art, it's truly public art. And what I mean by that is, like, we did listening sessions with 300 adults, most in English, some of them in Spanish. We did listening sessions with all of our students, and all of the artists sat in on these listening sessions, and we asked people, what's the history of your neighborhood? What do you want the art to stand for? What do you want the murals to stand for?
Everyone
what do you
had
want
some
the
input.
feel?
Yeah.
And everyone got to have input in this art. So again, it's like we got to bring to life and show people that you can bring to life and that we can do it.
Yeah, we can execute it ourselves.
That we have the capacity.
You certainly have the capacity.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy that project was talking about redlining, and you kind of got redlined in this process.
Irony.
Is it irony, or is it just it's fucked up?
That's the way that they're made. That's the way the systems are made.
Yeah. So people, go to the link, show notes below. You'll find the links, the necessary links. Donate to the cause. We're going to donate to the cause. Do this thing. A little bit of money can go a long way in helping this mission go forward. And who doesn't want to help this mission? How can you not love this guy?
I appreciate that.
Marcel, I appreciate you coming on, dude. I think it's great what you're doing. I'm sorry to hear about your wife. I'm glad you've got this project to, you know, make happen.
Yeah. Keep me busy and obsessed about.
Yeah. Make it fucking happen. We'll help you whatever we can do.
I appreciate that.
All right. Check it out. Peace out.